do some art and doom scroll on social media. It's a day of my life.
Hello.
Welcome in. I'm Sarah, and what do I do creatively? Or just in general?
Yeah, what do you do?
A lot of mistakes. There's a couple in here. This was the one right after the breakup.
Okay, tell me what it is and I'll get a close-up on it.
Oh God, this is that's vulnerable to tell you what this is. Everything in here is vulnerable. God, I'm a chronic oversharer. I don't know how to just casually, just like, oh yeah, I was dating a guy who was shooting up cocaine in my bathroom and I wrote a poem about it. Like, that's what this is. Called the cops on Christmas Eve. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Like that's what this poem is. It's always funny to me because there's gonna be the people who are like horrified by what you tell them, and there's people who think it's funny because they can relate, and then there's the people who are like have seen too much and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, and there's no reaction, and that's always boring. But I remember when I first got sober, because when you first get sober, you don't know what a feeling is anymore. And so when you start feeling them again, it's just kind of like, what is this? I'm uncomfortable. And so I joked about everything. And I remember in my first month, after a meeting, I was talking to one of my friends and I was joking about something that I always joked about. And in that moment I stopped and I just looked at her and I started crying and I said, wait, that's not funny. And she was like, it's not. And she's like, that's actually pretty horrific. And then that's when there were certain things I stopped joking about because I realized joking about them makes it harder for me to heal from what happened. It makes it harder for me to push forward in my recovery because this is, a real life thing that happened and I can't just gloss over it because I was high or because I was drunk. I had this book, it was The Painted House by John Grisham, and I was never going to read it, so I felt totally fine cutting it up. It was for a different art project, and then I don't know what compelled me to do this, but I started just cutting lines out of it and creating poems, and I was like, oh, I like this. And so then I would just buy books with the intention to cut them up, just to get new messages out of them. But then I bought Fahrenheit 451 and I was like, well, I have to read this book first. I can't cut this book up without reading it first. And then doing that, I learned it would be terrible for poetry. And there was nothing good in there. It was a good book, but nothing good for poetry. There was this time in between getting home from work and leaving for a meeting that I called pre-meeting purgatory because I didn't know what to do with myself, and I owned a stick of eyeliner and mascara, and so I was like, well, I'll just do my eyeliner and then go to this meeting, and which was it was a big deal for me because I had convinced myself I couldn't do eyeliner unless I got high first. I needed something to stabilize my shaky hands. And so then when I got sober, I was like, well, the only thing that I have to do before a meeting, I guess, is eyeliner. And so I would just do that. And then one day I drew a moon and a star on my face, right here. And that stuck. I would always do my eyeliner and draw a moon and a star. And then I just started exploring makeup a little more after that. I learned how to put on eyeshadow. I learned different things to draw on my face, on my eyes. But yeah, it just turned into another art form because I didn't have money for more art supplies necessarily, but just using the makeup that I had, I just explored creativity that way and was like, well, my face is a canvas, might as well use it.
The important part of your story was the creative meeting that you used to go to.
Yeah.
So tell me about how you stumbled on that and what is a creative meeting?
Yeah, so this meeting is called Rough Around the Edges and it's at How Place. And it's really just a bunch of alcoholics and drug addicts sitting in the same room. Some of them are artists, like you can tell by what they put out, and some of them are just there, you know, and like some people create, some people don't. But it's just like a room of people, like-minded individuals who are all creating something completely different. I would actually say most people I met at that meeting said that they don't have the ability to create, but they still went.
But while you're sitting there creating, you're also having like a meeting, right? You're also talking and sharing.
Yeah, in the beginning, no. We would try to have a meeting, but nobody would really share. Like the discussion leader would introduce a topic and then it would just like die out in 5 minutes and we would just hang out. That's what it was hanging out. Because even like the meeting starts, you know, at 7, but we start getting there at 6 to set up and you can start painting. And so you're just hanging out with sober people. And it's just kind of like, I don't know, I think that room is where I learned how to talk to people again, because there was no like, you know, like before meetings or after meetings when you're new and you're just like, I don't know any of these people. I'm like, why am I gonna go up and introduce myself to them? Even though that's 100% what I did. You know, it never like, it was like, I don't have a reason to talk to these people, but if you're sitting next to somebody and you're just painting, they're like, oh, what are you painting? Like, oh, what's your name? What's your DOC? What, and you're just like, casual questions, and then if conversation dies out, it's like, well, you still have a reason to be there. So it makes it less awkward and scary. I always had the intention to create, but like I have paintings that I did high, paintings that I did drunk, and I really liked them. And I was like, well, that's it. I've peaked. I'm sober now, so that's out the window. But being forced to, not even being forced, I went to this meeting willingly. It was because I knew on my own I wasn't gonna have the motivation to paint, because what if it turns out bad? And then I just stop. But this meeting, I was there for 2 hours. So it's like, well, if it turns out bad, then I can either start over or I can just talk to other alcoholics. You know, there was an option that wasn't that spiral in my head of how I'm a terrible artist, that, you know, getting sober was a bad idea. Yeah, it was just structure, like creative structure, if you can put those 2 words together.
Yeah. Structure breeds freedom.
Mm-hmm.